Hi, my name is Janet Swanson, and I would like to share my story with you. Did you know that 1 out of every 4 girls is sexually abused before the age of 12 years old, and 1 out of 7 boys? And it's usually from people that they know. And I am a part of those numbers. And I want to share with you my story and what Jesus has been for me throughout my story and throughout my life. When I was 12 years old, I wanted to commit suicide because of all the abuse that was going on in my family. From the age of 10 to 12, my stepfather sexually abused me, and it started off with him looking at me while I was in the shower, and then things got worse and worse and worse as the years went by. So at the age of 12, I decided, I've had enough of this. I can't live through this any longer. I don't want to live in this any longer. So I decided I was going to take my life. Well, the night that I decided that, I believe it was on a Sunday night, and I prayed. I prayed out loud, and I cried, and I asked God. I said, God, if you're out there and you care anything about me and you love me, tonight you will let me die. And that was the only prayer I knew how to pray. But that night, God heard my prayer, but He didn't answer it just like that. He showed up. When He showed up, I felt like this voice was on the inside of me, and this voice kept telling me not to kill myself. And I heard this knocking noise. It was something like in the wall, and I followed the sound all the way around the wall till I got to the window. And when I got to the window, I could see the moon. It was so beautiful, and it was so bright, and it was so big. It was as if I could reach out and touch it. It was so big. But really, it felt like the spotlight from heaven was shining down on me, and that I felt God's presence. And again, I heard that voice, don't take your life. I kept hearing the sound of heaven, I believe. And that still small voice saying, I know the plans that I have for you, and they're good, and I want you to tell somebody. Well, the next day I got up and I picked up the phone and I called the police and I told them what I was going through. Well, as any 12-year-old girl would think in their heart and their mind that when you call the police and you tell them what the bad guy is doing, they're going to come and take the bad guy away to jail. Well, they came, but they didn't take him to jail. They took me away. Meanwhile, while we were waiting for the police to show up, I decided, hey, I guess I need to tell my mom, and I need to tell my brothers what's going on because the police is about to show up. Well, when I told them what was going on, they called me liars. My mom didn't believe me, and then she said, well, if he did do it, then it's because you made him do it. And you're so beautiful and you're so talented that you make men do these things to you. Well, that cut me to the core of my very being because I felt guilt, so much guilt. I felt so much guilt, and I felt so much pain in that. It was almost worse than the abuse that I'd been through because I felt like my mother turned her back on me. Well, that day I was taken away from my family. I was taken away from my mother and my stepfather. I didn't know where my father was. But eventually, after I went through foster care for about 2 years and I ran away from house to house, I finally ended up with my father. And I was raised with my father after that. My father was really good to me. He did not abuse me. But after going through all of the sexual abuse that I went through and trying to live life as though nothing ever happened, that's the tricky part. And that's what I want to share with you, my journey from after the abuse of how now do I live a normal life after all these things have happened to me. And at the age of 17 years old, I will never forget it, when I went to church, I could feel love in the church, and it was kind of the same presence that I felt the night that I was going to commit suicide. And, I felt like, I don't know how to explain it except that it was so much love and so much power that it drew me. And when I came up for the altar call and I gave my heart to Jesus, He washed me clean. I could feel like liquid love just flowing in my soul and in my heart, my very spirit, my very being. And He was just washing away all of the pain and washing away all of the guilt and all of the shame. And shortly after that, I met this wonderful man, and he was leading worship at the time, and we got married, and we're married to this day. We've been married 30 years this year, it'll be 30 years. But you know what? It was a journey, the journey of from the time that I got saved even to now. God had me on a journey. See, the night that He saved me, He cleansed me from all of my sin and all of my shame and all of my guilt. But I didn't know that healing was a process, and it takes time. So layer by layer, God began to peel back everything like an onion, just peeling it back and showing me and revealing to me the things that He wanted to heal. And so God taught me how to forgive, and how that my past is not my past until I'm healed from it. And you can't heal from anything until you grieve it first. So the first thing I had to do is I had to grieve the loss of my childhood, grieve the loss of my family and the people that I love walking away from me. And then I had to let the Lord reveal those things that He wanted to heal in my life. I had issues with abandonment. I turned into a people pleaser. And this is typical of men and women that go through childhood abuse. They're looking for love, but they're left with this emotion and this feeling that something must be wrong with me. So I have to fix whatever's wrong. I have to make sure that I'm perfect and I can't make any mistakes and I can't mess up. And then you turn into a yes person, like you just want to please everybody, and you just say, yeah, we can do that. You want to please people and not make them angry with you and make them mad because you don't want to go back to the feelings that you had as a child. And when you've been abused and people got angry, they hurt you. But, when you grow up and you live a life with Christ, and we all have emotions, but when we get upset, we still think and we still have that feeling that maybe somebody's going to throw something at me, or somebody's going to get hurt, or, something bad is going to happen, and you just have that inner feeling. Well, God took me on a journey, and this is what He told me. He says, I want to heal you from the inside out. See, when you have deep wounds, you can't just sew them up. You can't pretend like they're not there. You have to leave that wound open, and then it heals from the inside out. And that's what God did for me. I wanted to share my story with you because as an adult, we have the tendencies to try to forget the past. Let's not talk about it. Let's not let anybody know what we're going through. But yet there's things that trigger inside of you, and you don't know why it's there, and you don't know why you're easily offended, or you don't know why you have this overwhelming sense that nobody loves me, nobody really cares about me. And you're in a family at the church, and you found a family, but yet you feel alone even with a group of people. And I kept asking myself, God, what is that? What is it that I feel? I didn't like it. I didn't like what I felt. I didn't like the emotions that I had, when people would walk away, just walking away from me. We could be in a conversation, and let's just say you forgot something that's over in the corner, and while we're talking, you walk away and you go get it. It would hurt me, and I'm like, that's not normal. Something's wrong. And again, I kept having this sense of something is really wrong with me. Well, God took me on a journey, and He says, I want to heal you from the inside out. And as I do this, I'm going to show you your insecurities, and I'm going to reveal truth and shed light to where there's darkness. And it was a painful experience because God, He opened the door to the things in my heart that I had buried, and I had shut the door. I had locked it and thrown the key away. But God says, you know what? I have that key. I'm going to come back in. I'm going to open it up because I love you and I want to heal you and I want to show you my love. So a part of this journey is how Jesus revealed Himself to me, even in my past, and how He had been walking with me all the days of my life. I opened up my heart to Him to receive His love and all that He was, and I learned how to lean in to healing, and I had to learn what healing looked like, and I had to learn how to live a healthy lifestyle in my mind, and how to think healthy and how to live a healthy life. And I want to encourage you today, just because you went through abuse as a child, whether it's verbal abuse, sexual abuse, or physical abuse, it's not who you are. See, a lot of times when we grow up and we've been that and we've been through that, we think that that is who we are. So we become a victim and we expect people to attack us. We expect people to turn their back on us. We expect people to walk away from us and to hurt us. And that's what victims do. Everybody's out to get me. Everybody's turning their back on me. And there's always people doing something to me. Well, one day I was reading the scriptures where, I need to renew my mind. And I began to lean into that and say, God, what does that look like? I want my mind. I need you to heal my mind. I need you to heal the images behind my heart and the thoughts that are in this head. God, I need you to show me yourself and heal me of all of this. And all of that, those thoughts and those feelings and those images, they were all because of the pain that I have felt from my past that I never got healed from. And the moment that I started renewing my mind and casting down imaginations was the moment I started to show signs of being healed, where, for instance, when an emotion or a feeling would come to me and it would be dark and it would be negative and it would be low, I would cast that imagination down and I would replace it with something else. And I would replace it with something positive, and I would take my thoughts up. And every time my thoughts would go down to negative, like I'm a victim, nothing good ever happens to me, I must be bad, there must be something wrong with me, I learned to go into the throne room of God and to make an exchange with Him and exchange to Him my negative thoughts for positive thoughts. And the moment I learned how to exchange my thoughts and give Him my negative thoughts, and then He replaces those with His thoughts towards me. Well, how do I know what His thoughts are? Well, I found out what His thoughts were by reading the Bible and reading His thoughts towards me, and that He has good plans for me and He has good thoughts for me, and that He loves me, and He has come so that I can have a life and a full life and an abundant life, that I can live a life free of guilt. I can live a life free of guilt and shame and of pain and abandonment and all those issues that I had. So as the moment I started renewing my mind and taking those imaginations and casting them down, I just saw Jesus in everything, in the middle of my trials, in the middle of my pain, in the middle of my thoughts that got dark and negative. When I began to see Him, those dark thoughts would begin to lift. And most people that go through any kind of abuse, they struggle with, in their adulthood, they struggle with addictions, they struggle with insecurity, and a lot of them have depression and mental breakdowns, and a lot of them are in mental homes. But the reason why I'm coming to you today is because I want to let you know, just because something bad happened to you doesn't mean that you're crazy. It doesn't mean that you're meant to be in a mental home, or that you can be depressed for the rest of your life. No, there is freedom in Christ Jesus. There is a way out. And that way out is by seeing that your future is brighter and seeing that Jesus is in your future. He was in my past, He is in my present, but He is also in my future. And instead of living my life from the past, I had to learn how to live my life through the eyes of Jesus and the plans that He had for me. And the one thing that the enemy tried to kill me with and tried to take me out is the one thing that God said, I'm just going to give you a platform, and you're going to stand upon the one thing that tried to take you out. And, God really, He just spoke to my heart and said, I want you to recognize people who have been abused, people that are hurting, and people that have kept secrets, and they haven't told anybody those deep, dark secrets, because I want to heal them. And He said, the Lord just spoke to me and said, all I want you to do is tell your story and I will heal them. You tell who I am in your story and what I've done for you, and I will do the rest. So that's why I'm here. I want to tell you that that night at 17 years old, when I invited Jesus to come and live in my heart, it was the best decision I have ever made in my life. But it wasn't the end. It was a process. Yes, He washed away my guilt, and He washed away my sin, and He washed away my shame. But there was a process of healing, and I had to figure out what healing looked like. And I had to lean in toward my future and the things that God has for me in my future, that my future is going to be greater and better than my past. And it's up to you. All you have to do is make a decision. I want to follow Christ. I want to believe the words that He speaks over me, and I want to believe that I am who He says I am. And I want to become that type of person, that woman or that man that God says that I can be. And if God says that you can be it, then you can become it. And He says He has come to set you free. And if He can set you free, if He can set me free, and I'm going to tell you, I have scars. Yes, I have scars from my past. You can see them, but so did Jesus. Jesus had scars. But I can stand here today and say, I don't have any pain from my past anymore. I don't feel the guilt. I don't feel the shame. I don't feel abandonment any longer. Why? Because I have made Jesus my everything. I want to encourage you, there is a healer. His name is Jesus. He is able to do exceedingly above what you can think, comprehend, or imagine. If you give Him your pain and you give Him your past, He has promised to take what the enemy has meant for harm and turn it around for the good and make something beautiful out of your life. He has promised to give you beauty for ashes. He has promised to turn your mourning into dancing. And that's what I've come to bring to you today. I come to give you good news. Let Him in, let Jesus in, and let Him become your everything, and you will see that your future will be bright and that there is hope for your future.